Yes.
I was born. I was too. You?
The Senate will come to order. Senator Murphy,
Good morning, Mr. President. I impose a call of the Senate.
the Senate is now under call. All right, members. Senator Murphy.
Mr. President, I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and that the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, in our tradition, I'm going to ask you to stand if you're able. In our tradition, we say prayer before we start the day, and then followed by prayer, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm pleased to say today's chaplain is Reverend Martin Erickson from Como Park Lutheran Church in St. Paul. And as a gentle reminder, at the conclusion of the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
At Como Park Lutheran Church, each week we pray for our community servants and our public leaders. Today, I invite you to join together as we offer prayers for those outside of these walls who lead and serve our government through its many branches and agencies. Let us pray. For judges and magistrates and clerks, that they might listen with compassion, decide with wisdom, and uphold our laws with justice. For the members of the House and staff of the House, that they might work with unity of purpose, for the good of all who live and work and visit in our great state. Make them faithful stewards of our natural, fiscal, and human resources, and representatives not just of party, but of all of our residents' needs and aspirations. For the servants of the administrative branch of government, our governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, and all of their staffs, grant to them, we pray, sharp minds, strong spines, and compassionate hearts, that they might lead and govern well. We ask these same gifts for our county commissioners, executives, and the members of this Senate. And finally, we lift up our first responders, fill them with courage, good judgment, and restraint, that those who are in need may be protected and well served. We commend all these servants and leaders into your great care and keeping. Protect and watch over them and fill them with the constant assurance of your consoling and empowering presence. Amen.
Thank you, members. The secretary will take the roll.
Abler, Anderson, Barr, Bolden, Carlson, Champion, Coleman, Swadzinski, Dames, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Drazkowski, Duckworth, Dietzick, Eichhorn, Farnsworth, Fateh, Frentz, Green, Grunhagen, Gustafson, Hoschild, Herr, Hoffman, Housley, Howe, Jasinski, Johnson, Klein, Coran, Kroon, Kunish, Kupek, Lang, Letts, Liskey, Limmer, Lucero, Mann, Marty, Matthews, May-Quaid, McEwen, Miller, Mitchell, Mohamed, Morrison, Murphy, Nelson, Umuver Baton, Pappas, Pa, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rasmussen, Rest, Seeberger, Utke, Weber, Wiesenberg, Westland, Westrom, Wickland, Zhang.
Thank you, members. A quorum is present. The following members intend to vote from a remote location under Rule 40.7. Senator Duckworth, Senator Dietzick, Senator Howell, Senator Lang, and Senator Wiesenberg. Members, if you'd like to... Well, it appears now that instead of voting from a remote location, Senator Howe is with us. Thank you for being with us. We are graced by your presence. We will begin with the Senate agenda. As you know, that it is dated Friday, May 17th. We'll start at the third order of business, messages from the House. The Secretary will read the first message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce that the House has adopted the recommendation and report of the Conference Committee on Senate File Number 4399 and repassed said bill in accordance with the report of the committee, so adopted. Senate File Number 4399, a bill for an act relating to human services. Senate File Number 4399 is herewith returned to the Senate. Signed, Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Members, there's no action required. The Secretary will read the next message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce that the House has adopted the recommendation and report of the Conference Committee on Senate File Number 4579 and repassed said bill in accordance with the report of the committee, so adopted. Senate File Number 4579, a bill for an act relating to energy, providing for and regulating shared meter utility service in residential buildings. Senate File Number 4579 is herewith returned to the Senate. Signed, Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Members, there's no action required. The Secretary will read the next message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce that the House has adopted the recommendation and report of the Conference Committee on Senate File Number 3567 and repassed said bill in accordance with the report of the committee, so adopted. Senate File Number 3567, a bill for an act relating to education. Senate File Number 3567 is herewith returned to the Senate. Signed, Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Members, again, no action is required. The Secretary will read the next message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce that the House has adopted the recommendation and report of the Conference Committee on Senate File Number 3852 and repassed said bill in accordance with the report of the committee, so adopted. Senate File Number 3852, a bill for an act relating to labor, making policy and technical changes to programs and provisions under the Department of Labor and Industry. Senate File Number 3852 is herewith returned to the Senate. Signed, Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Members, again, no action is required. We will now proceed to the fifth order of business, reports of committees. Senator Murphy for a motion to adopt the committee reports.
Mr. President, I move the committee reports printed in the addendum be adopted.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. We'll now proceed to the sixth order of business, which is the second reading of Senate bills. The Secretary will read the Senate file number.
Senate File Number 3886.
The Senate file has been given its second reading. Members, we'll proceed now to the seventh order of business, which is the second reading of House bills. The Secretary will read the House file number.
House File Number 5363.
The House file has been given its second reading. Members, we will proceed to the eighth order of business, which is the introduction and first reading of Senate bills. The bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Members, proceeding to the ninth order of business, motions and resolutions. We adopt the author's motions as one motion. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate Resolution Number 103 will be referred to the Committee on Rules. No action is required there, members. And remaining under motions and resolutions, we will now proceed to the Conference Committee reports. And I will begin with Senator Mohamed.
Mr. President, I move that the foregoing recommendations and Conference Committee report on Senate File 3492 be adopted now and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Conference Committee.
Senator Mohamed moves that the foregoing recommendations and Conference Committee report on Senate File Number 3492 be now adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended. Senator Mohamed, will you tell us what are the differences between when the bill left the Senate floor and now returning from conference? Senator Mohamed.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. When the bill left our Senate floor, it had a number of provisions, and the House's file was much different. Their bill included a lot more penalties and enforcements for previous statutes. It also included a few other new provisions. We have accepted some of those provisions, but left out most of the House language. And our language that we passed out of the Senate floor is the same.
Can you tell us what are those provisions that you accepted from the House during Conference Committee?
Okay, cool. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll just go through what's in the bill currently as it is.
Can you narrow it down to just
Yes.
what was added? Senator
Okay, so-
Mohamed.
Thank you, Mr. President. What was added is duty to mitigate, which is a provision that ensures that if a tenant abandons a unit before their lease expires, the landlords are now required to re-rent the unit to a new tenant at a fair market rate. And if they find a new tenant, the previous lease is terminated. Covenant of habitability expansion is a existing statute which requires landlords to keep units in a reasonable repair. This provision expands to include common areas of buildings as well as to specifically include infestation and other emergencies. Denial based on pending evictions is a provision that we also picked up from the House. This provision conforms with other expungement updates which passed last session, and under this provision, landlords may no longer deny rental applications based on pending evictions cases, non-public court files, and expunged records on any other specific records. Tenant screening updates is another provision that we picked up. Tenant screening agencies are now required to update and verify the status of court files at least 24 hours before issuing a screening report. This provision includes a civil cause of action, allowing tenants to recover up to $1,000 in addition fees, addition to attorney fees and other equitable relief.
Any discussion on Senate File number 3492? Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is a motion to adopt, correct? Okay, I see that.
That's correct, Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move the recommendations on the conference committee report, Senate File 3492, be rejected and that the bill be re-referred to the conference committee as formally constituted for further consideration. And I would ask for a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Lucero moved that the recommendations and conference committee report on Senate File number 3492 be rejected and that the bill be re-referred to the conference committee as formally constituted for further consideration. Senator Lucero, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I sincerely appreciate the conversations that I have had and continue to have with Senator Mohamed. I appreciate the conversations with all members of the Housing Committee, and I've appreciated the conversations with stakeholders, both for and against some of the different provisions that have been considered this past session. In regards to the product that we see before us, unfortunately, I cannot support. There are certainly items in there that I do support and look forward to hopefully becoming law, but it is commingled with items that I cannot support. One of the things that is very important for tenants, for people seeking good housing, is they need to have confidence and certainty in and stability with their housing. In order to achieve that, housing providers need the same certainty and confidence in the decision making that they are making every day with choices to provide the best homes. Stability is needed because these are the factors: confidence, stability, reduce the risk. And risk is a huge component when it comes into establishing the rent for different units. And every housing provider, myself and every that I'm aware of, they seek to have the minimal amount of cost for the rent after accounting for the risk and the other variables that go into the cost of providing great housing. The components of the bill before us, which is the reason why I hope members will reject, the components of the bill before us make it difficult for housing providers, especially smaller housing providers in this industry. It will raise the costs and potentially make smaller housing providers exit the industry altogether. Mr. President and members, not all housing providers are alike. There are certainly very large companies that own thousands of units. There are medium-sized companies, but there is a significant portion of housing providers across the state that are mom and pop operations. They are single moms, single parents that might own one additional unit, one additional home that they're renting out. And the risk that continues to be increased adversely impacts these small housing providers the hardest. They cannot withstand the increased risk and the increased costs that come along with this. So members, Mr. President, members, I hope to gain your support that we can send this back to conference committee and come back with a report that recognizes this reality of the current market and not increasing risk, uncertainty, and costs on housing providers and on tenants. Thank you.
Senator Mohamed, to the Lucero motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've worked really diligently and hard with my members across the aisle, including Senator Lucero and Senator Housley. We've been in plenty of conversations. We've had conversations with landlords. The goal of this is not to harm housing providers, but it is to help them and create laws that are clear, that are fair for both tenants as well as landlords. And that's what this bill does, and I hope that the body can accept the conference committee report.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Senator Mohamed, for your work in this area, a very important area. But I have to stand up and support Senator Lucero's position to send this back. Members, there's a lot of good things in here, but there are also a lot of things that are going to harm housing providers at a time where we need them the most. We've had quite a reduction in creation of new housing units. With fewer housing units, rent continues to climb, and it's the exact opposite thing we need to do right now is to put more restrictions, more red tape, especially on the smaller operators that provide the flexibility that I think a lot of the people that the author is trying to help will actually end up hurting those people she's trying to help. And then one of my biggest problems is on line 13.19, having the right of an outside group come in and ask for personal information of someone like my daughter and address, phone number, email. In this society we live in today, that should be an option, that if they want to buy in and provide that, I'm all for that. But giving that personal information out, I have a problem with. So please reject this. We can do better. Send it back. We still have 3 days. Thank you, members.
Senator Howell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll talk remote today.
That's a good idea. Senator Howell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll stand to actually support Senator Lucero's motion to send this back. As in my other job, I also do code enforcement for housing units. And members, with this, I have had to order vacation of a rental unit because of the conditions that have been in there. But the conditions weren't done. The conditions weren't there because the landlord did not do their job. The conditions were there because the tenant usually failed to keep the place in proper, good health conditions. So that my problem with this piece is it does not require the tenant to continue to pay rent after it's vacated. The last tenant that I had to remove from a space, it took the landlord 3 months to put that unit back into shape in order for those tenants either to move back in or rent it to someone else. No, the landlord couldn't have done anything about it. That tenant space, that rental unit was so bad, I believe you could have probably planted seeds and grown a garden in the carpet. It was horrendous. And so when this section says it also has to be liberally construed for the protection of the tenants, you know, I believe that to be true if the landlord is at fault. But when the tenant is the cause of the problem, I don't believe it should be construed to the protection of the tenant. So that is just one of the many things in this bill that I cannot support and why it needs to be sent back to the conference committee and improved and be brought back. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion before I go to the author of the motion before we vote? Senator Lucero, it's your motion. You'll be the last voice before we vote.
Again, Mr. President, members, I would just encourage a green vote to send this back to make it a little bit better so we can continue to work to provide great houses, great homes, great rental properties at the lowest possible price for the great people of Minnesota who are renting. Thank you.
The secretary will take the roll on the Lucero motion to reject the conference committee report. Senator Bowden, for all those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dietzick votes no,
Senator Dietzick votes no.
and Senator Morrison votes no.
Senator Morrison votes no. Senator Pappas? When you're ready, Senator Jasinski, just stand up. You'll be fine. Thank you. Take your time.
Mr. President.
Senator Jasinski, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Duckworth votes aye.
Senator Duckworth votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lang votes aye.
Senator Lang votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 31 ayes and 35 noes, the motion to reject is not adopted. Members, we are now on the underlying motion, which is the Mohamed motion to adopt the conference committee report. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, I want to thank Senator Mohamed for her efforts, and I look forward to future and continued conversations in this area because I know that her and I both share a sincere passion to ensure that Minnesotans have houses, homes that are great and that are as low in cost as possible. But I do have a few questions then in this conference report if Senator Mohamed would yield for a question.
Senator Mohamed, will you yield? She will yield. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Mohamed. So I have a question in regards to abandonment. So I would draw your attention. Let's start with on line, it's page 3, line 3.21. So on line 3.21, there are definitions then for abandonment of tenancy. And Mr. President, Senator Mohamed, on 3.23, abandonment of personal property. So I'm specifically looking at the terms that are obviously within the quotes, because that's the term then that's being, the two terms that are being defined. Abandonment of tenancy and abandonment of personal property. In my experience with contract and contract law, the term that's being defined is within the quotes. So I draw that to your attention then in those two terms. Then I would ask you to flip forward to page 6, and I would draw your attention to line 6.2. And Mr. President and Senator Mohamed, this was the question that I had posed to you here a couple days ago, just explaining how I think there might be a discrepancy here and looking for a little bit of clarification. So as we read line 6.2, it says, if a residential tenant abandons the dwelling unit during their lease term, and it goes on. The specific word on line 6.2 is abandons. And I would remark then that it is not the two terms that were defined on line 3.23 and 3.21. Therefore, the definition of the word abandons as used in line 6.2 must have a different meaning. My concern, Mr. President and Senator Mohamed, is the requirement of this language. It says that a landlord shall make reasonable efforts to rent the unit out at fair market value if the tenant abandons. So from the position of a housing provider, from a landlord, how are they to know what the definition of abandonment is? That's what I think needs to have clarity, and that's what I'm not seeing here. And so if you could just provide some insight on that. Thank you.
Senator Mohamed, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Lucero, for the question. So part of it you mentioned, it is what abandonment is defined in page 3 as it means that somebody who abandons the place that they're living, their unit, and the housing provider is not receiving the rent that they should be receiving. They go, the way that it's defined for me, the way that I define it is, or at least, so one, it's defined on page 3, what abandonment is, and what we mean by on page 6, under somebody who is leaving their unit and not, and that the landlord is allowed to re-rent that unit at a market rate. It means that that housing provider is not receiving the rent. They're not able to find the person, and so that would give them the opportunity after at least a month, then they can go and re-rent that unit.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if Senator Mohamed would yield for another question.
She will yield. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Mohamed. And again, my pure motivation is just to understand. It's not a gotcha at all. So I hope that's how it's coming across. It's a sincere seeking just to understand. And what I heard there in the answer of the word abandons is that there are a few criteria, such as not being able to find the tenant, and that the tenant or that the landlord is not receiving rent. So the two criteria I heard listed in regards to abandon, again, that the landlord is not receiving rent and that the landlord cannot find the tenant. Can you, Mr. President, Senator Mohamed, could you please show where those criteria are listed, either on page 6.2 or on page 3, in regards to the definition and the requirements, the elements to determine if abandonment has occurred?
Senator Mohamed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Lucero. For one, you did read that abandonment is defined on page 3, and I'm happy to read that for the body, which says abandonment of tenancy means the intentional and voluntary absolute relinquishment of premises by the residential tenant. And it's also important to know that a number of other states have this provision in their law. And it's important because it gives housing providers the opportunity when they're not getting paid the rent that they're supposed to go and find another person.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if Senator Mohamed would yield for a question.
Senator Mohamed, will you yield? She will yield. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Mohamed. And to be clear, I'm not entirely opposed to the provision as written on 6.2. I'm not opposed to that. If a property or a unit has been abandoned, as the housing provider, I'm more than willing to myself put efforts into renting it and having a statute here passed that would require landlords then to rent a unit if it's abandoned. No opposition to that. I'm drawing members' attention, Mr. President, that abandons, as it appears in the requirement on 6.2, that's not the term that's used on page 3. On page 3, it says abandonment of tenancy, and it's in quotes. So what I would anticipate would happen is on page 6.2, if we are using the definition on page 3, then on page 6.2, where it reads abandons, what I think I'm understanding the author to say is that it should read, if a residential tenant engages in abandonment of tenancy. But that's not what it says. And so therefore, the word abandons, as it appears on 6.2, has to have a definition. And so if one is going to try to draw the parallel into the definition of abandonment of tenancy, I'll reread it. The intentional and voluntary absolute relinquishment of the premises by the residential tenant. If I, as a housing provider, if I can't find the tenant, there's just no communication, non-responsive to text messaging, non-responsive to emails, non-responsive to phone calls, non-responsive to letters, how am I supposed to know that they have performed an absolute relinquishment? I don't know. So then how do I begin to advertise that unit? So let's proceed down a hypothetical here. If I, as a housing provider, I suspect that it has been abandoned by the tenant, but I don't know for certainty because there's no communication and I don't have any documentation that I could point to that says an absolute relinquishment has occurred. If I begin to market that unit, watch the mechanics here. I begin to market that unit, and I find a prospective tenant. I sign a lease with that tenant. Then, let's say all of a sudden I get a text message or communication resumes from the previous tenant that I thought had abandoned, and they say, Eric, I apologize. I had a medical condition. I wasn't responding because I've been in the hospital for the last 6 weeks for whatever purpose. Or a family member out of state, I had to travel to go and take care of, and my cell phone was damaged and I couldn't respond. So I was taking care of my family member for the last 4 weeks, and that's why I've not been responsive. But Eric, I had no intention of abandoning the property or giving up the lease. Now I'm stuck. Now I have that current lease, and now I've just signed a lease with a prospective new tenant. That's what I'm concerned about. So, Mr. President and Senator Mohamed, can you please explain how the verbiage as it appears on 6.2 would avoid that scenario that I just described?
Senator Mohamed, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Lucero. I think I've answered the question the best I can for you. And abandonment is defined in certain cases in statute. We've defined it on page 3 that it means absolute relinquishment of premises. I think most housing providers will understand that if they're not getting paid their rent on their unit for at a minimum a month, 2, if they can't find the tenant, then that means that person is abandoning their unit, and they're able to go and find another person to re-rent that. I think this specific provision in the bill actually makes it easier for housing providers to be able to find other tenants when their rent is not being paid on time and they can't find the individual and they're not able to communicate with them. I think there are many scenarios we can point to where the language may be wrong or right. If you have ways that this language can be better clarified, I'd be happy to work with you on that next year.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, I appreciate Senator Mohamed's response there. Further clarification. Again, it's not my opposition, it's just clarification. I think right now, as again, I've mentioned the smaller operators, I am concerned with the way that they're interpreting this or try to execute this, and I don't want them to get stuck into a position and then have subsequent lawsuits. So again, members, I would just draw attention to a few more items here. There's an item under tenant organizing. Not opposed to that. It's a new provision. I'm not entirely opposed to that, but I'm opposed to some of the details in there that I think could have had a better job in clarifying. Among those, there's a section in here that says a landlord cannot increase the rent, decrease services, and there's a list there after a tenant has engaged in tenant organizing activities. Within 90 days, by the way. Where I'm concerned is, let's say a tenant begins to engage in, they're 30 days or 60 days out from the expiration of their current lease. They then engage in some tenant organizing activities. No problem. But because their lease is coming to an end, naturally, because they've engaged in some tenant organizing activities and it's within a 90-day window, if I'm going to increase the rent or I'm going to alter the rental agreement in the new lease, how am I supposed to protect myself against a false claim that the rent increase is due to retaliation for the tenant having engaged in tenant organizing activities? That has lack of clarity here. And there's an opportunity for false allegations and then having the Attorney General come after when the entire allegation was false because the rent would have gone up anyways. I'm concerned with there's a provision that prohibits denying application based on pending eviction action. Again, certainty and risk are among the largest factors that go into determining what a rent is going to be. If I am performing a screening activity and I'm not permitted to use a pending eviction action as a criteria, that is going to decrease the certainty that I have. It's going to increase the risk of signing a lease with that tenant if I can't use that information. Increased risk, just as we see with credit cards, as we see with mortgage home applications, as we see with auto loans, if there has been a history of lack of payment or other financial matters, that increases the risk and then therefore it increases the rate charged for credit card, home loan, auto loan. The same applies here. If there's an eviction action pending and I can't use that, the indicator of the risk that I would otherwise use increases my risk because I can't use it, and therefore I have to increase my price to compensate for the increased risk. So these, Mr. President and members, are among the reasons why I don't think this is ready to be passed into law, because it is going to increase the risk and it'll further exacerbate the high cost, high price of housing already being felt, the pain being felt by good people of Minnesota. So for that reason, Mr. President, I would ask for a roll call and I would ask members to vote no on the motion. Thank you.
A roll call was requested and a roll call granted. I don't know what happened to it, but we will now vote because you were the last speaker on your, oh, hold on, who's? Oh, I am. I made a mistake earlier with Senator Howell because I was still thinking that we were on the motion to reject, but we did do that. So I'm going to go to Senator Howell. We are on the underlining Mohamed motion. Senator Howell.
Thank you, Mr. President. And would Senator Mohamed stand for a question or two?
Senator Mohamed, will you yield? She will yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Mohamed, how many conference committee hearings posted on the Senate's website were held on Senate File 3492?
Senator Mohamed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Howe. We had one conference committee meeting.
Senator Howe.
Thank you. Would she continue to yield?
She will yield. Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Mohamed, how long did the conference committee publicly deliberate prior to adopting the conference committee report?
Senator Mohamed, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Howe, for the question. I have had numerous conversations with the chair and the other body, with our Republican members on the Senate side, with tenants, housing providers. So there's been conversations that I've been able to have with cross-section of folks throughout the process.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President and Senator Mohamed, but that didn't answer the question. The question was, how long did the conference committee publicly deliberate prior to adopting the conference committee report? I understand that you had a lot of conversations, but when you held your conference committee report, how long did that, in the public eye, have their conversations?
Senator Mohamed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Howe. We had one public conference committee meeting where we adopted the DE and the language that was agreed upon.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Senator Mohamed, how long did that conference committee last?
Senator Howe, are you asking her to yield?
Yes, Mr. President.
Members, just for clarity, all questions has to come through the president. We want to make sure that we're asking. Senator Mohamed, will you yield? She will yield. Senator Mohamed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Howe. Not exactly sure, but long enough where we accepted a GOP amendment.
Senator Howe.
Could Senator Mohamed repeat that? Because I didn't understand the answer.
Senator Mohamed, will you repeat? Is the question.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Howe, for the question. I'm not exactly sure, but that meeting is recorded somewhere publicly. But I know it was long enough to accept a GOP amendment, ensuring that I have worked with everyone.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. And would Senator Mohamed continue to yield?
She will yield. Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Did the conference committee provide an opportunity for the public to testify on Senate File 3492?
Senator Mohamed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Howe. Yes, we did have public testimony from housing providers as well as tenants.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions? Senator Port, did you want to speak before we adopt the committee report?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I encourage you to vote yes to adopt the committee report. Senator Mohamed, I want to thank you for your work on this. It's an incredible bill that really represents the nexus where good acting landlords and tenants' rights can work together seamlessly. This is not a burden for landlords who are acting in good faith. These are things that many landlords are already doing. It just helps even the playing field for tenants. So thank you for your work on this. Senator Mohamed and members, I encourage you to vote yes to adopt this report.
All right, members. Senator Mohamed moved that the foregoing recommendations and conference committee report on Senate File 3492 be now adopted. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just as you had erred in the motion before us, I thought this was third reading, so based on this is just an adoption, I can withdraw the roll call and wait for the third reading. Thank you.
Thank you. That shows you great minds think alike. That's even when we make a mistake. The roll call is withdrawn. On the Mohamed motion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The motion prevails. Really? Seriously? Oh. I just want to be clear, No division for real, is that correct?
You're getting a request for
Division? Division. All those in favor stand.
Mr. President,
Senator Latz.
prior for your call for the vote, Senator Klein had rose for the purpose of requesting a roll call, but you did not see him. We ask that you go ahead and do that and nullify the previous voice vote.
Having announced the vote, I cannot change it at this particular time. So there will be a division. All those in favor, please stand. And this is for adoption of the committee report. Members, remember we are counting, so no one should be talking to another person at this time, please.
We now have 14. Who did we add? Yep. Got it. Yes. Yep. Okay.
You all may be seated. The vote is 34 in favor. That is what is sufficient in order for the motion to be adopted. The secretary will give the bill its third
Mr.
reading.
President?
Senator Pratt, for what purpose do you rise?
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Please inquire.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are remote voters counted in the division?
They are not.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File Number 3492, a bill for an act relating to housing, amending provisions relating to residential housing leases.
Third reading. Now we're on third reading. Any discussion on the bill? Senator Westrom,
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President.
please inquire.
Mr. President, how many members are voting remote right now?
Senator Westrom, you have 5 members voting remote.
Mr. President, can you tell me how many the Democrats are voting remote and how many Republicans are voting remote?
I'll be happy to. 1 Democrat, that is Senator Disick, and 4 Republicans who are voting remotely.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm going to the final speaker. Before we vote, Senator Mohamed, any final comments?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll keep it short. One third of Minnesotans are renters, and this bill establishes strong protections for renters, including a right to organize, a right to seek emergency assistance, expanded protections for survivors of domestic violence, and new remedies for students and renters when a new construction is not finished on time. I have worked with both our GOP colleagues, our House colleagues, and I think this bill is a good bill, and I hope members vote yes.
The Secretary will take the roll for final passage on Senate File 3492. Senator Bowden, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dietzig votes aye.
Senator Disick votes aye. Senator Jasinski, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Duckworth votes no.
Senator Duckworth votes no.
And thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lang votes no.
Senator Lang votes no. We're just waiting for Senator Rath. All senators having voted who desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 35 ayes and 31 noes, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, Senator Murphy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I'm going to move a brief recess to the call of the President. Watch your emails. It could be very brief, but we'll give you like a 30-minute notice so you know when to come back. I expect that we're going to have a day like this as we're waiting for issues to come from conference committees or coming over from the House. So, Mr. President, I move a recess to the call of the President.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is now in recess until the call of the President.